Nobody understood why a 4-year-old history student walked onto the front lines of Odessa carrying a sniper rifle she'd been handed only hours earlier. What her comrades didn't know was that 11 days earlier, a single German bomb had erased her university, killed 73 students, crushed her professor under rubble, and burned her best friend alive in the library. It didn't turn Lyudmila Pavlichenko into a soldier. It turned her into something the Wehrmacht would learn to fear. At 5:47 a.m. on August 8, 1941, she crouched behind shattered brick in Belayaevka. 40 meters to her left, Sergeant Dmitry Kravchenko, the man who'd shared his last piece of bread with her, was hiding behind a ruined wall. What he didn't know was that a German sniper already had him in his sights. Lyudmila had been in the Red Army for 4 months, on the front line for 6 hours, with 0 confirmed kills. Before this war ended, she would have 309. The Wehrmacht was pushing 3 full divisions, nearly 150,000 Germans, toward Odessa. Soviet forces were outnumbered 3-1. Snipers in her unit were dying faster than replacements could be trained. And yet she had volunteered. Now, as a German scope tightened on Kravchenko's skull, Lyudmila raised her Mosin Nagant for the first real shot of her life. If she failed, he would die. If she succeeded, this would be the moment a quiet student began the path to becoming the deadliest female sniper in history. And it would lead her to a forbidden trick, one so dangerous the Soviets banned it. A trick that would terrify German snipers for months to come. Lyudmila hadn't planned to become a sniper. When she walked into the Kyiv recruiting office after the bombing, the officer didn't even bother looking up at her. "Women belong in medical units," he said. "Not infantry." Lyudmila disagreed. Quietly, but firmly. She'd been shooting since she was 14. Youth shooting club. Regional competitions. Top marks, every time. The officer laughed. Shooting paper targets wasn't combat. Combat was noise, screams, blood, chaos. So she asked him to test her. He handed her a rifle, pointed at a fence post 100 meters away. She fired 5 rounds. All 5 punched through the center. The officer stopped laughing. 2 days later, she was assigned to the 25th Rifle Division, not as a nurse, not as support staff, but as a sniper. But talent alone didn't prepare her for what she walked into in Moldova and southern Ukraine. The line was collapsing. Soviet units were retreating, reorganizing, retreating again. Snipers were desperately needed and dying just as fast. Lyudmila entered a world where concealment meant survival and mistakes meant death. And for her first 4 months, she wasn't tested. Not really. No clean targets. No perfect shots. Just hours of mud, exhaustion, hunger, and fear, with German forces pushing closer every day. But everything changed that morning in Belayaevka. As Lyudmila held her breath and squeezed the trigger for the first time, she didn't feel triumph. Not even relief. Only one cold, precise thought. Where's the next one? That mindset, instinct over hesitation, calculation over fear, would define every shot she took from that moment forward. But she was about to learn something far more brutal. The Soviet sniper doctrine she'd been trained to follow was getting snipers killed. And the first proof of that would come just 11 days later. Lyudmila's first confirmed kill should have boosted her confidence. Instead, what happened next did the opposite. Just 11 days later, she watched Lieutenant Anna Morozova, one of the most experienced snipers in the 25th Rifle Division, follow Soviet doctrine perfectly and die for it. Morozova had 47 confirmed kills, 8 months on the front. Cold, disciplined, by the book in every way. And that was the problem. Soviet sniper doctrine in 1941 was strict. Never expose your position. Fire from concealment so deep the enemy can't see you. After every shot, move to a secondary nest. Never fire more than 3 times from one location. Never stay longer than 30 minutes. Never engage unless you have a planned escape route. Morozova obeyed all of it. She set up in a bombed apartment building, 3rd floor. Excellent sight lines. 2 exits already mapped. 1 shot at Treyhunter the Tuva meters. German machine gunner down. She moved exactly as trained, to a second position. 20 minutes later, another clean kill at 280 meters. Then she moved to her third planned nest. A single shot cracked through a stairwell window. One round, straight to the chest. She never made it to the ground floor. The German sniper who killed her, Hans Becker, hadn't seen her. He'd predicted her. He watched her first shot, calculated where doctrine required her to relocate, and set his trap. Morozova followed the rules. Becker followed her. She died instantly, and she wasn't the last. Corporal Viktor Stepanov, only 19, set up in a perfect concealed ditch textbook position. At dawn he fired twice, hit twice, and German artillery obliterated the entire ditch based on triangulating his shots. His concealment was flawless, his discipline flawless. He died anyway. By September, Ludmila had watched 7 Soviet snipers die. All of them obeyed doctrine. All of them were predictable. And predictable snipers were dead snipers. For Ludmila, one realization hit harder than shrapnel. If she kept fighting by the book, she would be next. 7 dead snipers in 1 month. All of them disciplined. All of them trained exactly as the manual demanded. All of them predictable. Ludmila knew she wasn't better than they were, not yet. What kept her alive wasn't skill. It was the uncomfortable truth she finally admitted to herself. The Germans weren't beating Soviet snipers with better aim. They were beating them with better thinking. She started watching the battlefield the way German counter-snipers did, not hunting targets, but hunting behaviors. Every engagement followed the same fatal pattern. 1. A Soviet sniper fired. 2. Germans triangulated the muzzle flash. 3. Counter-sniper or artillery respond. 4. The Soviet sniper either died or retreated. It was predictable warfare. Predictable meant dead. German snipers, especially veterans like Hans Becker, did the opposite. They didn't wait for targets. They created them. They set up positions where Soviet snipers were most likely to appear. They watched movement patterns, repositioned before anyone suspected, and punished anyone who followed doctrine. The more Ludmila studied their methods, the clearer the truth became. Soviet snipers were prey. German snipers were hunters. And Ludmila refused to live or die as prey. So she spent her nights observing, not firing, not engaging, just watching. She mapped how German snipers used light, elevation, shadows, how they avoided ground-level nests, how they always chose angles with clean escape routes, how they fired once, then vanished. She saw patterns where her instructors had told her there were none. She learned patience, stillness, silence, the kind of silence measured in muscle cramps, burning lungs, and hours staring through a scope without blinking. And with each observation, her mind pulled further away from Soviet doctrine. The rules weren't keeping her alive. They were getting her friends killed. Somewhere between exhaustion and fury, between fear and clarity, Ludmila reached a breaking point. To survive, she couldn't follow the book. She had to become what the Germans feared most, a sniper who didn't play by any rules. And that realization pushed her toward an idea so reckless, so forbidden, that no Soviet commander would have approved it. But Ludmila was done asking for permission. The turning point didn't come with a shot. It came with a question. If the enemy expects you to hide, why not make them shoot first? Every rule she'd been taught said concealment was life. Never expose your position. Never give the enemy a target. Never fight on their terms. But concealment hadn't saved Morozova, or Stepanov, or the 5 other snipers buried in shallow wartime graves. German counter-snipers had grown too good. They could find Soviet nests, even when the camouflage was perfect. They weren't tracking mistakes. They were tracking patterns, and pattern was the one thing Ludmila refused to be. So she began forming an idea so reckless that if any commander discovered it, she could be court-martialed. What if the Germans weren't the hunters anymore? What if she chose the battlefield? What if she turned their aggression against them? The idea sharpened into something clearer and much more dangerous. She would make herself the bait. Not truly herself, not at first, but something that looked enough like her to tempt a German sniper into firing. She began sketching it out in her notebook. 2 nests. Not one. Only 4 to 6 meters apart, close enough to switch in seconds. A decoy in the primary nest. A helmet on a stick. A spare sleeve stuffed with straw. A silhouette positioned just right to catch the light. The real nest, completely concealed. Rifle aimed at the most likely German position. If the German took the bait, muzzle flash would give away his location. She would have 2 to 4 seconds to react, acquire the target, adjust for wind, and fire. If she missed, she would die. If she hesitated, she would die. If the German realized the decoy wasn't real too quickly, she would die. Every calculation pointed to suicide. But doing nothing was suicide too. And Ludmila Pavlichenko had seen enough funerals. On the night of September 2nd, she quietly gathered a helmet, spare cloth, and a handful of wooden splints. No one asked why. No one suspected what she was planning. By dawn, she was ready. The next morning, she would test the trick for the first time, and the German sniper who took her bait would never see it coming. Dawn on September 3rd, 1941, arrived cold and gray. The kind of morning where even breathing felt dangerous. Ludmila crawled into the ruined cellar she had chosen the night before. It wasn't perfect, but perfection was for people with time. She didn't have time. German snipers were killing Soviet soldiers every day. She set the plan in motion with quiet, deliberate movements. 2 nests, 5 meters apart. The first nest, the decoy, looked like a sniper who'd made the rookie mistake of exposing himself to watch the German line. A helmet balanced on rubble. A sleeve stuffed with straw to mimic a shoulder. A silhouette convincing enough from 300 meters away. The second nest, her real position, was nothing more than a pocket of shadow in a collapsed wall. Barely space to lie flat, barely space to breathe. She crawled into place, settled her Mosin Nagant onto its rest, and aimed at the area where an experienced German counter-sniper would most likely hide. Then she waited. Waiting was the real battle. 45 minutes of absolute stillness. Muscles burning, eyes watering, ants crawling across her hands. Her heart beat the loudest thing she could hear. But she didn't move, not even to blink. At 6:17 a.m., the shot came. A sharp crack across no man's land. The decoy helmet snapped backward, a perfect, clean hit. Someone had taken the bait. Ludmila exhaled once, slow and steady, and scanned for the muzzle flash. There, 320 meters away, behind a broken brick wall, a faint flicker of light, a blurred shift of movement. 3 seconds. That was all she had. She didn't have time for math, for wind correction, for anything except instinct. Crosshairs. Breath. Trigger. She fired. The figure dropped instantly. No fist pump. No celebration. She didn't even check. She abandoned both nests, moved 40 meters west, and set up again. Textbook counter sniper discipline, but this time, the book belonged to her, not the Soviet manual. Through her scope, she watched the brick wall. 2 German soldiers emerged minutes later, dragging a limp body. Confirmed kill. Her forbidden tactic worked. And it didn't just work once. The 6 weeks that changed everything. Over the next 6 weeks, Ludmila refined the bait method until it became a weapon as sharp as any bullet she fired. She learned how long German snipers waited before exposing themselves, where they preferred to position their nests, 2nd and 3rd floors, how they avoided ground-level positions targeted by Soviet artillery, how they shot with the sun behind them to blind their targets, how rarely they changed nests during daylight. She built decoys that looked almost alive. She placed her real nests where no one expected at ground level, deep in shadow, behind angles Germans never checked. Every encounter became a chess match. Decoy German shot, muzzle flash, checkmate. By October, Ludmila had 78 confirmed kills. 22 of them were German snipers. People in the division started whispering her new name, the woman who hunts the hunters. Officers who had lost men sought her personally. Soldiers brought her vodka, rations, or nothing but grief, begging her to stop the ghosts who shot from the ruins. And Ludmila accepted every mission. Not out of pride. not out of glory, but because German snipers had killed 7 of her friends, and she intended to repay every one of those deaths, shot for shot. By early November 1941, Sevastopol was bleeding. Food was running out. Ammunition rationed. Wounded men lay in bunkers without morphine. Entire platoons were frozen in fear because of one unseen killer, a German sniper who'd executed 11 Soviet soldiers in 3 days. Officers, sergeants, anyone who dared give an order in the open. No one could find him. No one could counter him. He didn't fire twice from the same position. He didn't leave traces. He shot once, then vanished like smoke. By sunrise each day, Soviet command was half paralyzed. Major Chernov summoned Lyudmila and laid out the photographs. Entry wounds, angles, distances, all perfect shots. No survivors, only the dead. If this sniper wasn't stopped, the sector could collapse. He gave her 48 hours. One sniper, one ghost. Winner keeps the front line alive. Loser dies. The hunt begins. Lyudmila walked the ruins with Lieutenant Boris, a reconnaissance officer who knew Sevastopol like a man walking through his childhood home. Collapsed buildings, shattered churches, twisted railway lines, every corner hid a potential nest. 14 possible German firing points. 14 was too many. So she looked not for the man, but for his habits. Every kill came at first light. Every shot taken between 5:45 and 7:30 a.m. Every victim someone of importance. The sniper wasn't aiming for body count. He was collapsing command. That told her something. He was watching the morning routines. He was studying movements, not soldiers. She narrowed the field to 3 positions. The north tower of a ruined church, the 3rd floor of a collapsed apartment block, the roof of a former school, all elevated, all with escape routes, all with clear sight lines to officers' morning rituals. Still, 3 was too many. So she made a decision so reckless that even she questioned it. She would be the bait, no decoy this time. Just herself. Not a helmet, not a stuffed sleeve. A living Soviet officer. The duel, November 8th, 1941, at 5:42 a.m. Wearing the oversized coat of a dead lieutenant, Lyudmila walked into the open near the command post, exactly where officers normally gathered at dawn. 4 meters away, hidden behind rubble, her rifle waited, pre-aimed at the church tower. If she was wrong, she would be dead before she touched the stock. For 17 minutes, she stood still, every nerve in her body screaming, every instinct begging her to take cover. Nothing. Then 5:59 a.m., a rifle cracked. A Mauser cacked her noisily. A bullet sliced past her head, close enough to part her hair. She dove left toward her rifle, hit the ground hard, grabbed the stock, brought the scope to her eye. 3rd floor, church tower. A shadow pulling back from the opening, 3 seconds before it disappeared. She didn't calculate wind. She didn't adjust elevation. She didn't think. She fired. The figure jerked, staggered, and fell backward into darkness. Was he dead? Or was he waiting for her to move? She stayed still. 3 minutes. 5. 10. No shot. No movement. 15 minutes later, Boris's clearing team stormed the tower. 2 minutes after that, Boris appeared at the opening and waved, "All clear, target down." Inside, they found a German sniper with 94 confirmed kills, a custom Mauser with a Zeiss scope, and the position he'd built to murder an entire Soviet sector. Lyudmila had beaten him by doing the unthinkable. She made herself the most valuable target on the battlefield, and survived long enough to pull the trigger first. After the duel in the church tower, Lyudmila Pavlichenko's name began moving through the ranks like a rumor soldiers whispered around campfires. By May 1942, less than 11 months after her first kill, she had 309 confirmed kills. Shiloshim Vishesh enemy snipers, 187 officers and NCOs, and dozens more infantrymen, machine gunners, and artillery spotters. Every kill verified by witnesses or captured German documents. Soviet command had no interest in inflated propaganda, they needed proof. But the war took its toll. Shrapnel tore her arm. Artillery concussions knocked her unconscious. A mortar blast ripped into her leg. And in June 1942, another explosion shattered her jaw and damaged her eye. She would live barely. But Soviet command made a decision she hated. She was too valuable to die. They pulled her from the front. She was 25 years old, 309 kills behind her. A lifetime of war ahead of her. Instead of a rifle, they handed her a new assignment. Teach, inspire, represent. She met Churchill. She toured America with Eleanor Roosevelt. Newspapers called her the most dangerous woman in the world. Thousands filled auditoriums just to see the young Ukrainian sniper who had hunted the hunters. After the war, she returned to Kyiv, married, had a son, lived quietly, the opposite of the icon the world believed she was. On October 1964, Ludmila Pavlichenko died at 58, a stroke. A simple end for a woman who had survived everything else. Today, her Moser Neglant sits behind glass in the Central Museum of the Armed Forces. Scope still zeroed. Initials still carved into the stock. And next to it, a photo of Ludmila at 24. Tired, unbroken, staring straight into the camera. A reminder that survival in war rarely comes from following rules. It comes from the courage to break them. If this story moved you, don't let it disappear into the algorithm. Like the video to bring more forgotten heroes back into the light. Subscribe to help us preserve the history others left behind. And comment where you're watching from, because these memories live as long as we remember them.